Good morning, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well today. We have made it to yet another Tuesday, and I know you guys are probably waiting for the deep dives on the draft class, for me to really go deep into these guys that we drafted now that we know that we have them. It's a little bit easier to motivate yourself to really go all out looking at a prospect once you know for a fact he's on the team, and I am going to do that. It's probably going to start on Thursday. Not all set up yet. I'm working on it still, so assume it's going to be here on Thursday. Tomorrow's the first day of the month, so we're going to have some stuff for that day. But Thursday will probably be the day we start with Murphy, and then we just go in draft order until we get through all of them. And that'll basically be the last big piece of content on this channel for a while because things are going to slow down at that point. But this video, I want to talk about a recent interview that Brady Henderson did on the Brock and Salk show on 710. And Brady Henderson's a guy that I follow pretty closely when it comes to Seahawks stuff. He's relatively plugged in. He's mostly just a reporter. He doesn't do a lot of editorializing. He mostly just passes along what he hears. So I look at Brady Henderson a lot when I'm trying to get a feel for what is going on. Now, he was on the Brock and Salk show, I believe it was yesterday, and he said a few things about the Seahawks 2024 draft class that I found to be a little bit interesting and illuminating. So there are three things that I want to go over in this video. And the last one is probably the most compelling one, but I think all three of them have some degree of interest. So the first thing that he passed along was what he believed to be the dream scenario for the Seahawks. And some would argue that Byron Murphy was the dream scenario because there was so much smoke around Byron Murphy to the Seahawks. And that was probably high up on our list. But Brady Henderson said something pretty interesting in this podcast. He said that the Seahawks dream scenario, he believes, he didn't pass this along as known fact, but he did say he thought the Seahawks were hoping that JC Latham would be there at 16. JC Latham, the tackle. So that's interesting on a couple different levels. For one, I would have assumed that JC Latham would be there. I thought Tennessee reached significantly to get him. And I find it very interesting that he was the most coveted. Again, we're assuming that Brady Henderson is correct here, but generally Brady Henderson seems to have a pretty good feel for things. So when he says something like this, I think it's reasonably credible. So JC Latham, for those of you who don't remember, Alabama tackle, more of a right tackle than a left tackle. And that at least implies on some level that JC Latham was so coveted because Abe Lucas is maybe not doing so great, right? Because unless you're planning on moving Latham inside, which, I mean, I guess that's possible, right? He's not 6'9" or anything like that. I think he's 6'6". He might be able to move inside the left guard then, and if that's the case, then great. But if the Seahawks really were hoping that Latham would be there and he was like their realistic dream scenario, then I don't think that says anything too great about Abe Lucas. So even though we're hearing mostly positive things about Lucas's rehab, I do think that this indicates that they, at the very least, maybe they think he'll be good for a year or two, but they are accepting that Lucas is not going to be a long-term solution because of the knee, which very reasonable thing to think, but it's somewhat surprising to hear that they're willing to spend the 16th overall pick on fixing the issue. So JC Latham reportedly was the dream scenario. I mean, obviously the dream scenario was Caleb Williams, I'm sure, but we're talking within the realm of what is realistic here. Now, maybe they didn't think Byron Murphy was realistic because a lot of people thought he would go in the top 10, and they were maybe even looking beyond him. So maybe if you ask them now, they would say that, oh, well, Byron Murphy was even more of a dream scenario than Latham. We just didn't think Murphy had any chance of being at 16. I don't know, but I find that is, I mean, even if it's not the Abe Lucas thing, then it's interesting because of the things Schneider has said about not wanting to invest excessively into the left guard, the interior offensive line. If he is drafting Latham to play on the interior, then that would indicate he doesn't actually believe that that's a hard sticking point for him. So that was the first thing. The second thing, this is more kind of just trivia than it is anything super compelling. But he did say that 4 teams contacted him trying to trade up to a 16 overall. He had trade offers from the Packers, the Eagles, the Steelers, and the Vikings. So their phone was ringing off the hook for these trade downs situations, and he turned down all of them quickly. A few people have pointed out that the Seahawks got their pick in much closer to the start of their clock going than they usually do. They did let it go a little bit, but it was not one of those scenarios where they go up until like 20 seconds left and then they get the pick in because they were shopping around for trade downs. They very quickly decided that they would prefer to just stick and pick Murphy. So that does indicate on some level that they really, really coveted him. As for the 4 teams that tried to trade up, the Packers, who knows what they would have done? They may have wanted Murphy. They may have taken Byron Murphy there. The Eagles, they just took Jalen Carter last year. I don't know if they would have taken Murphy. They don't tend to let things like positional need dictate what they do, so maybe. The Steelers might have been trying to trade up to get Troy Fatanu, and they were able to get him where they were anyway. And the Vikings were probably trading up for Dallas Turner, who they ended up taking at 17. I do find it interesting that we didn't cook something up with the Vikings because that's a 1-pick swap. Maybe we really, really coveted Murphy over a guy like a Dallas Turner. Maybe we thought the Vikings would consider taking Murphy if he was there and settled for Turner as kind of a consolation prize when we took him. I don't know. It's kind of interesting for a team that has always tried to trade down. Although last few years they haven't. Worth noting, um, they wouldn't take. I don't know what they would get out of a trade down of 1 spot in the middle of the first. Maybe they could have squeezed like a 4th round pick out of it. But they were like, no, we're not messing around here. That definitely shows a different approach than what they had for an extended period of time from, I'd say 2013 to 2020, 2019, I guess, and even a little bit before that. So they that shows you how much they liked Murphy. And whatever I might think about the player personally, it does make you feel good to know that the team loved the guy they got so much, they wouldn't even hazard a tiny risk of losing him on a trade back. Now, this last thing I want to talk about from Brady Henderson on the Brock and Salk show kind of addresses a video that I made a few days ago. It was, I think, on Friday, so it was day 2 of the draft. We had gotten some very interesting reports from various people within the NFL that the Seahawks had been extremely hot to trot on Michael Penix and attempted to trade up to get him. Presumably trying to trade up with Atlanta. Maybe they were trying to trade up a little higher than that. I don't know. But there was some stuff coming out that they were trying to get Penix, and they may have been willing to trade Metcalf for it. So the third thing that Brady Henderson talked about on the podcast was he doesn't believe it. And this is not the first time we've heard this. I think it was Condota who said this recently as well. He doesn't think the Penix thing was real. He thinks that there was no attempt to trade up for Penix. And Henderson went on to add that he doesn't think we would have taken him at 16 if he was there. Like if Penix and Murphy was there, we would have taken Murphy. If Penix was there and Murphy was gone and maybe we're choosing between Penix and Mitchell and Turner, whoever, he doesn't think we would have taken him. Now, he doesn't offer anything super concrete there, but he did say that he doesn't think we liked Penix that much, which personally, you guys know how I feel about Penix. I don't hate him. I don't think he's bad, but I do think there are some real obstacles between him and being a productive NFL player, and I'm not convinced that he's going to be able to overcome those obstacles. And I personally don't think he would have worked very well with what we have right now, which I know sounds weird because we have his old offensive coordinator, but I said what I said. So, he doesn't think it's real. He doesn't think any of it's real. The DK Metcalf part he didn't even address, but if the initial trade's not real, then the whole thing can't be real. So there you go. Again, I know everybody's going to have a different take on that, but I hope it's true because if John Schneider was really, really coveting Penix, that would have it wouldn't have made me not trust him. I don't want to say that because it's not like I really don't like Penix at all. Some people really do. Some people think he should have been like undrafted and stuff. I'm not kidding. But if he coveted Penix to the degree that he would have done something he's never done before to get him, it would have just kind of thrown me off because I would have been like, well, okay, I guess I don't know the kind of quarterback that John likes because I don't think Penix matches the Schneider blueprint as well as some of these other guys. So, yeah, that was interesting, and I hope it's true personally because I don't want to have to sit here feeling like we dodged a bullet. I'd rather the bullet never got fired. So it doesn't sound like the bullet was fired because, again, this is not the only guy who said it. I heard it from Cadota, and I think I heard it from one other guy as well, that the trade up that was never even a consideration. All right, so that's what he went over. I just wanted to go ahead and go over all that. I thought it was pretty interesting and an insight into how this team feels about what they did in the draft. And it seems to be they feel pretty good about it, and they feel pretty good about how things broke. All right, see you guys later. Go Hawks.